Welcome back, Boss Bitches, to the Boss Bitch Rising podcast. I am so excited to welcome Jessie Medina to our episode today. Jessie, if you would like to introduce yourself, tell us about who you are and how you are changing lives. We're so happy to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and your audience. I am the founder of FEMX Quarters, which is a creative space here in San Diego. I'm also a community builder, an international speaker, and honestly, just a creative that likes to have fun and travel a lot.
You do so much. I'm just so inspired by you. I met Jessie back, I think it was in August of 2021 at an event that our friend Gianne was hosting, and we've become closer and closer since then. I know that we've mingled in several spaces together. We've presented at several events together, and you just inspire me so much because of how much that you do, how accomplished you are, and how young you are to have accomplished so much. So if you could share with our audience about your backstory, where you're from, how you've evolved into who you are today, and all of the beautiful success that you've had along the way, and even share some failures too, because I know that we all have those sprinkled in, right?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Argentina. My family and I, we immigrated to the US in 2001. So, it's been about half of my life I've been here, give or take. But yeah, that was a cultural shock. I didn't speak English at the time. I had to learn the new language. I was the oldest sibling. So anybody that's an oldest sibling knows you're already responsible for a lot. And then when you immigrate here, you become like everything to your parents just because you're typically the one that learns English first. And so then they think you know everything. They think you're like the lawyer and like the interpreter and like all the things, right? You're also the oldest sibling who's taking care of the little ones. And so I think I share that because I think that really kind of shaped who I am now. I see myself as, the older sister type of persona. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping women, I have my sisters are younger, and, I kind of grew up like being the older sister. And so I love to be that example, live by example, influence others in a positive way. But I definitely think that experience totally shaped me. So then fast forward, I graduated school a little bit earlier because it turns out the education was different over there. So we were kind of advanced compared to the curriculum here. So ended up going to school, to college. And then I remember thinking as I was in school, that at the time I was really interested in communications and creative work, but I always knew I wanted to be my own boss. I even when I thought I was going to be like a graphic designer or something, I thought I'm going to own a firm, I'm going to have my own business, so I always saw myself as creating something that was my own. However, I ended up kind of taking the corporate route. I got an internship my last year in college, got my foot in the door for a company. And it turns out that most of the people running the company, all the executives, they're older, right? They're these older guys. And so I was a young millennial, that knew how to use social media. I was reporting to the marketing executive. And so that got me the opportunity to work directly with him, come up with new strategies for the company, which was not social media driven, was not a modern, company at the time. And so because I got to work with them and they got to see my work, and they ended up promoting me. They ended up giving me a new department to run, the communications department. So a lot of things in my life that kind of seem, and I kind of breeze through them because it's a long story, but moments that seemed, maybe insignificant, like when I was signing up for that internship, I was just signing up for an internship, right? But then it turned out to be something that paid off really well. I got a raise, I got a promotion. I was at director level right after my internship, right out of college. And that just helped me learn a lot. And I worked for that company for a few years. I helped them rebrand, and, I was really doing really well. And the little time I had, to, vacation and stuff, I would travel a lot. I've always loved traveling. So I kind of started a traveling Instagram, I'm a foodie and a traveler. So I started like this travel/food Instagram. And that started growing on the side. So I became an influencer, you know, what we know as an influencer then. And then I was still having my corporate job. So, you know, it was fun. It was fun. It was a lot. But yeah, that's what got me started with that whole world. And I eventually, like, that company hired, you know, it got acquired by a bigger firm, and they hired a new CEO. And this is kind of where, like, this part of my life, this phase of my life, and I will share a little more about this because this really shaped me, right? So I had always been passionate about helping people, but I didn't know what I wanted to create for myself or how I was going to help people. And, you know, they hired this new CEO, and he basically was kind of a jerk. He was, you know, he started harassing the women in the company. And I was the only woman in the boardroom, right? So I had to see him every day. And a lot of the women in the company, like even women, you know, we had a lot of locations all over the place. So they would reach out to me thinking, I'm the woman, I can help them, you know. And little did they know that I also was experiencing harassment from him. And it was weird because I was always this strong, you know, powerful, outspoken woman. But at that time, I remember feeling like I was frozen. Like for a few months, when I look back, I'm like, I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't want to tell anybody, not even like my family, not even my friends. Like I was just kind of going through this alone, and then trying to help the women and feeling a lot of pressure. And I started feeling anxiety and just not recognizing myself, just being like, who are you? Feeling paralyzed. And I know a lot of people that have been through abuse or trauma, they have had this sensation of feeling paralyzed and anxious at the same time. It's like you're like, your body's like shaking inside, but then you're also like frozen. And so, you know, this was kind of around a little bit right before the Me Too era. So like, you know, I was seeing the news, I was seeing women speak up and being ridiculed, you know, on the media. I was hearing comments, even when I was sitting in a room, like listening to the news, of people saying like, why didn't she say something? Why didn't she do this? Why did she do that? Right? Like always blaming the woman. And so all those little messages I was hearing kept me even more frozen in time. And so I remember eventually I, you know, started having all these anxiety symptoms, and I didn't know what I was experiencing at the time. And I, you know, started talking to a mental health professional, and, you know, he's like, you have to do something. Like, you either need to speak up, you need to leave, you need to do something because your health is suffering. And it wasn't just psychological. And we both know that the mind affects our body, affects everything. And so literally, like, my eye would twitch involuntarily, or like my hands would shake, or if he like walked by, like I would feel like the fear, like physically fear. So yeah, so I remember when I realized that my body was being really affected, I was like, I'm gonna quit no matter what. And, you know, I was a young person with a really good position. I knew people were gonna be like, what is wrong with you? Like, how can you quit a job like that? I was in a really good track, and I was really right under the CEO. So like I could have gone anywhere with that, right? But I decided that my health was more important, that I was not gonna let that happen to me. And also I decided that I wanted to be the one to speak up because nobody was. And so I reported it to HR. And I remember the last drop was that my assistant came to me crying, saying that she was feeling this way. And the next day is when I decided, like, okay, I have to speak up. You know, I can't see this girl crying. And I would cry by myself too, you know. And I spoke up, she spoke up, and one other woman spoke up out of like hundreds of women in the company. And pretty much straightforward, the director of HR told us that he couldn't be touched because he's the new CEO. He was brought in by the investors, and like, you know, he had basically all the power. But she was very clear about that. Like, I'm so sorry about what's happening. We are not going to do anything about it, but we'll talk to him. She just said, we'll talk to him. Well, that didn't turn out well. He actually started retaliating. you know, against us, and he would mock us, and he would, you know, pinch my leg or do inappropriate things, and then he would be like, "What are you gonna do? Report me?" You know, because he knew that I had done that or reported. Like he felt like he had all the power. So eventually, I was like, I can't do this anymore, you know, and I don't care what people think, and I don't care if I lose this position. And I remember one day, and this is important because it's the mind shift, right? Everything, all change starts in our mind. And I, in my mind, quietly, I didn't have anybody around me, and I just said to myself, I am going to quit this job, even if I have to work at McDonald's. You know, I don't care. Like, I literally did not care. I just wanted to choose me. And the moment I made that decision, a really interesting call came in from a woman in San Diego who wanted to hire me as a consultant, who had heard about me. And I was living in Utah at the time. So that was very like, the other interesting thing is I had visited San Diego twice before, the year before, and I loved it. And I said, like, I want to live here. I would love to live here. This is my place. So I had that in the back of my head. So when this woman called me and said, "Hey, I want to hire you as a consultant. I live in San Diego. We could fly you out, like, you know, twice a month or whatnot." And I was just like, just take me there. I didn't say it like that, but in my head, I was like, just take me there. I knew it was my sign. And that door, I believe, opened because I made that decision in my head to leave. And
Isn't
so
how quickly things will start to shift in your life when you finally just make a decision?
yes.
And
Yes,
it's like, it's, you don't actively do any work for that thing to come into you, but you've just shifted your energy to, I'm standing up for myself. This is what I deserve. I know my worth and I'm sticking to it. And then so many things in the back end start to be magnetized to you quickly. Okay, continue.
yeah, and you know, people will say, like, because I understand when we are in these rough times, these rough patches, like it seems like forever, right? So it seems like, oh, it sounds easy, but it takes forever. I've been in this situation forever. And what I've got to say to that is we probably haven't done the mind shift, because when I do that, I really see the difference right away. So there's something that we got to work on when we are going through times that seem like nothing is happening. And also understanding that even through those times, it's preparing us for something else. Like, I don't think right out of college, I would have said, I'm going to start a female empowerment movement. Like, my mind wasn't there. Like, I knew I wanted to help people. I was a nice person, you know, but I didn't have that drive yet. And everything that I went through made me want to do that. And so I told them, I gave them my 2 weeks notice. I used my last 2 weeks to go on vacation because I hadn't used all my vacation days. So I actually used part of my last 2 weeks to go to Aruba and, you know, just being the traveler that I am. And I remember just taking care of myself, just saying, like, I choose me, you know, I choose my health, and I choose to be a good example, someone that spoke up. And anyway, I, you know, quit, moved to San Diego with my little dog in a big U-Haul truck. I remember I was so scared at first of driving the truck. And by like the second hour, I was like, oh, I got this, you know, but, you know, moved to San Diego and I started consulting, but at the same time, I felt like I don't really want to do this again. Like, I don't really want to go into this corporate world thing again. And my mom and I decided, because eventually I told my mom, and she's always been passionate about women and empowerment. And so I told my mom, let's start doing events for women, just for fun. And also because I didn't have friends in San Diego, and I was like, I want to meet cool women. I was going to a lot of networking events in an effort to meet people, and everybody was so transactional. You know, everybody was so businessy. Like, here's my business cards. And I remember sometimes I would tell people, like, you want to grab coffee? And they'd be like, what are you trying to sell me? Or like, why? And I was like, I just want to grab coffee with someone. You know, I want to meet people. So I created, in a way, kind of what I needed, which is really important for business to sometimes, you know, we try to think like, who's our avatar? Who's our perfect ideal customer? And if you keep encountering a problem and you don't find a solution out there, and like you're looking around and you can't find it, sometimes that's the problem you gotta solve. And you are your avatar, you know? And for myself, I was like, I wanted to create a safe space that was diverse, because, you know, I'm Argentinian and I want other women, all kinds of women, to be included. And I love, you know, I love cultures, I love travel, so I love meeting different people. And yeah, basically I created an event that was geared towards people that wanted those things. And I remember thinking, if I get 5 people in my first event, like I'll be happy because I don't know anybody in San Diego. So I posted on Eventbrite and I was like, hey, if I can get 5 people, like that would be great. I'll just have 5 new girlfriends. And it turns out that, the first event, 20 people signed up. And I was like, what? Like I had to, because I had put the limit to 20 because I didn't even think I could get 5. But yeah, it got sold out. And then since then we kept going and kept going, and people came on and they really loved what we were doing, and they were so supportive. Until this day, a lot of those women are still around, FEMX, and they're still helping, and they know like the beginning of it, and they know like how I had just moved to San Diego, and now we're like best friends. And so it was really cool. So anyway, started transitioning, started growing. We did our first, by the second year, we did our first like annual conference, a summit, and we had hundreds of women sign up, and it was focused on female entrepreneurs that were diverse. And it was just incredible. And the reason it worked is because it was needed. And it was because it was a problem that I solved that nobody had at the time. And so as we started growing, I was like, we need, after our first summit, I had got a space for that. And anybody that does events knows how much goes into an event, how much energy, how much work, and a lot of money too.
Yeah.
And so I was, I had a branding consulting agency, and then I had my events, this thing that I was doing for passion. Like I maybe broke even, it wasn't really for money at this time. I was like, it's whatever, but I was passionate about it, and it was growing. And after the first event, I was like, one day I was just sitting on my bed and I was like, I wish I had my own space, because I'm always looking for a venue. I'm always looking for a space to do events. And it's hard to find it. And then they want to charge you like you're getting married, every time you have a little get together. And that was the first time that kind of that seed for FEMX Quarters was planted. And then the other thing that also like helped me come up with it was that at the time I was working out of a co-working space for my agency. And same thing, when I was in my co-working space, like I didn't really make friends there. I would go to the women events and have all these friends, and then I went to work every day and like didn't have friends, and I didn't relate to the people at the space. And so that was the other thing I wanted. I wanted to create a creative space that people could co-work, and they could actually be friends, and they could actually go out for drinks afterwards. And that's what we have at FEMX. Like honestly, like I see people being best friends after they meet at our events. They're doing all these things together, collaborations. Sometimes they become business partners, and I love that. I love that. I see myself as a platform. I see myself as just kind of like that stage for that to happen. And I think that's true influence. True influence is not building followers. It's building up other leaders. True influence is really moving people to do what they're meant to do and know what you want them to do. And so for me is, if I can offer up the space and people can decide how they want to use the space. Do they want to have a photo shoot? Do they meet their next business partner there? Do they want to throw their own event there? It's up to them. It's just a space to create. And the reason I kind of went back on my story is because I think it's so important to share that background, to understand that sometimes like our hardest times and sometimes the ones that feel the longest, like I'm never going to be out of this season. It sucks. I was in that corporate negative situation for about a year. And at the time it felt like it lasted forever, but every single thing I learned in that job and every single thing that I learned in that year of the toxicity led me to where I am now. And it led me to understand women. It led me to understand our needs. It led me to understand the glass ceilings that we still have, but also like, how can we break them? A lot of people focus on the problem. Like we have this problem there, we don't have equality and this and that, but it's like, what are we doing to break those things? What are we doing to make it change? What are we doing to equip others to make it change, or to stand up or to speak up? And that's empowerment to me.
And everything that you've experienced has been like little seeds that have been planted along the way. And sometimes, when you're buried in the soil, and as you might know, with agriculture, they use manure, which is what? Cow poop to cover the soil, to enrich the soil, to help the seed grow. And sometimes we're sitting in some shit that doesn't feel good or smell good or look good. But what grows out of the shit is something so beautiful and can feed so many people. And I think that's the beautiful part of your story and your journey, is that, you know, there were the good moments and then the shitty moments that have all helped to guide you to this beautiful garden that you're cultivating within our community. And, you know, I got introduced to you through one of our good friends, and then, you know, several times have met you in your space of FEMX Quarter. And every single time that I've been in this space, it just has such a good energy, and the people that are attracted into this space, I can't tell you how many beautiful connections that I've made there. And just seeing the work that you're doing within the community, specifically for female entrepreneurs, is just so inspiring. But I love that you mentioned that influence is really influencing others to step into their own power and becoming empowered to do the same thing in other people's lives. I call that the ripple effect, where, you know, when you shine your light bright, you're going to inspire others to, you know, illuminate their life, to continue the lighting the candle, if you will, for the next person and the next person. But I'm also curious, because you mentioned inspiring others to become leaders. What is leadership? What does leadership mean for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you know, like the idea of leadership, or they think of it as a title or power, right? And it can be powerful. I just think a lot of people, especially traditionally and historically, you know, we've seen leadership as something to take advantage of. It's just sad, but when we look at history, when we look at, you know, people taking over lands and countries and like killing people for power and doing all these things. And to me, leadership is when you can really influence somebody else to step into their own power. So for me, I'm failing as an influencer if I'm just like getting followers, right? If I get people that want to be Jessie Medina, I'm failing as a leader. If I get people that want, you know, if I get you to want to be more Kale because, you know, you see something that I'm doing and you're like, oh, dang, I love that she's doing what she's meant to do. I'm going to go and do what I'm meant to do. Like, that is my goal. And that is true leadership. True leaders don't build followers. True leaders build up other leaders. And so that is my mission. That is what I'm here to do. And that is what I try to do. And I'm very transparent on social media. And I tell people like to try to be like me. Like, you know, a lot of women, when we have events and, you know, we talk about a lot of things, a lot of women will say things like, I want to be like Oprah Winfrey. Like, I hear that so much. And I'm like, there's already an Oprah Winfrey. You know, you will never be Oprah Winfrey because there's already one, but you can be you and nobody else can. So we really need you to be you. We really need you to step up. We really need you to show up. And nobody can show up in the way that you can. And we can say the same message. Like, you and I are so aligned. Like, I know we believe in a lot of the same things, but the way you may say something is not the way that I say it. And for some people, it'll resonate the way that you say it. And for some people, it'll resonate the way that I say it, you know?
Exactly.
And so it's really important that we all use our voice in a way that's authentic. And that's the other element of being a leader, is being authentic, being truthful, and showing other people that that's the best way to really get to your destiny, to your purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually, you know, been stepping more and more into my power. And as you've seen, I've been sharing that, you know, quite a bit over the last several months on social media. But I love having conversations with influential people such as yourself and talking about what leadership is. And I would say that we all of the people that I've invited onto the Boss Bitch Rising podcast, all have very similar views, fortunately, on what quality leadership and influence is. But I'll share something about, you know, my journey is I've always felt like I had to separate my personality from my leadership role, in a sense of like, I curse, I'm goofy, I'm wild, I like to shake my butt, I like doing fun things, and that's part of my personality.
You and I both, girl.
Yes. But I think, you know, partially from my indoctrination, being raised, who I was raised by, I was raised in the Catholic Church. So there's a lot of things that kind of feed into my beliefs around what leadership should look like versus what I actually want it to be. And so I have a belief that leadership needs to be kind of just really dry and professional, and like there's no personality, and you're just really systematic about how you approach things. And as I've really stepped into the next level version of myself as a leader, I've realized that I'm actually more influential, authentic, and I can serve people at a higher capacity when I'm allowing all of those other aspects of my personality to be intertwined with my leadership role, because it empowers and inspires people more to just be more of themselves, to have more fun. And when people are having more fun, they're going to do better work.
Also, like, I do want to mention like toxic masculinity too. And I emphasize toxic masculinity because masculinity itself is not bad. And I love men, right? But it's, you know, there are a lot of patterns that we've picked up along the way, just historically, right? And so a lot of the definitions that we have nowadays in business, including leadership, are very masculine, but a lot of it stems from these toxic masculine beliefs, right? And so what happens is we just know them that way, right? Like you said, maybe you grew up Catholic, I grew up Christian, like we hear all these things in church or like media, wherever, and we're told things in school, and we think it's that way, right? We think we just, even if we don't necessarily adopt those things, like we still just know them that way. We are programmed that way. And so I challenge people all the time to, and even with marketing, I do this with marketing, I do it with branding. I literally challenge all the terms that I used to use, you know, like that terms that I don't like, you know, like creating urgency, like certain things that I'm like, no, like why? Like, are we trying to be manipulated, whatever, right? So it's like all these things, and sometimes when I'm writing my copy too, it's like, how can I rephrase this in a way that's more authentic to me? Because before I was saying it not because it was authentic to me, but because that's the term that I learned in school, or that's how we see leadership, right? So we used to see leadership as, you know, oh, like people listen to you. Like if you are a good leader, they listen to you. Well, the problem with that is that you can do many things for people to listen to you, including bad things, including fear, right? Including manipulation, including threatening people or discriminating people. And so it's not necessarily about people listening to you, because if they're listening to you from a bad place, you're not really influencing them.
Well,
you're
are
forcing them.
not.
You're forcing them, though.
Yeah.
It's not by choice, right? Like if you're forced to do something, if you think, oh, if I speak up about this, this person is gonna fire me.
Right.
They're not really influencing me. They're just forcing me, right? They're putting me in a tough position. So I think that true influence and leadership is when you don't even really have to tell people what to do. They, you know, they feel compelled to do something, right? They feel compelled to help. Another question I get a lot when I do events, I get so many volunteers, and I've been asked before, like, how do you even get your volunteers? And I'm like, I don't tell people, like, I don't go around telling people, like, help me, which is probably not the best thing, right? It is good to ask for help. I'm not saying it's bad to ask for help, but, you know, I have people that come to me and say, I want to help with this. I want to be part of this. I want to get involved. When we launch something or when we share something, like people want to sign up, you know, and that to me is so powerful. And I want to create a brand that doesn't even rely on me. It doesn't rely on Jessie, right? That our community, you know, and true community cannot be manufactured, right? So the women in my community are the community leaders. You know, they take initiative. They come up with ideas. We just launched our app. It's called FEMX Community, if anybody wants to find it. So we have a mobile app now. And I was afraid, I remember for so many months, that what if we launch it and like nobody like participates, because I am part of so many memberships, and sometimes people, you know, and most of them, people don't participate and it's not engaging. And I was kind of worried about that. And now there's women that are way more engaged in the app than I am as a founder, you know, and I love that. And I see that, I'm like, you know, I'm just like a proud mama, like, oh, you know, and that's, you know, that's what I want to create, something that is self-sustaining and it's inspired. You know, it's when people are inspired, when you can inspire people as a leader instead of like forcing it, that's real power. And I think with real power also comes responsibility, great responsibility. So of course, that's not to say like, you know, to use that in that way, but just just understand that that's how you really influence. And then everything else comes after, you know, the accolades or titles or opportunities, the calls, the money, like all that comes after. You know, it's not something that we can manufacture and just sometimes it's done. I've seen it being done where people do manipulate that process and maybe get the accolades or maybe get the book deal or something, but I don't think it's really influential when I see it that way. I think maybe they get the award or whatever, the public recognition, but then you don't really see that true influence and you don't see that true engagement. So I think it's always better to kind of choose the slower path, because a lot of people, you know, want it to be fast. They want it to happen fast, right? And, you know, maybe like you might see that somebody else got a book deal or somebody else got speaking engagement, and you're like, why not me? But don't focus on that. Don't focus on the outcome. Focus on the process, right? So focus on like, how can I build myself up in a way that's authentic, in a way that stands out? How can I build up other people? How can I bring real transformation? Because people will not be able to not rave about your work if you're like bringing transformation. So when you start doing those things, it may take more time to, you know, for the word to get out there, but I think it's ultimately more sustainable and it's real. When you get to those places, like people know why. They will not be saying like, why is she even there? You know, they'll be like, oh yeah, she's awesome. Like she deserves to be there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely say that I've seen it myself too, where people kind of build the facade of success or whatever else, or they take shortcuts to get to that next level. But whenever we do that, build the facade or take the shortcuts, I see it as being built. There's a term called being built on a house of cards, where it's like the foundation of what you're creating is so unstable and you've taken so many shortcuts. And I mean, just one wrong movement and the whole thing will crumble. And a lot of the time people are also using unethical tactics like manipulation or slight word of mouth to kind of change what they're saying just slightly, where it's not a complete lie, but it's also not a complete truth. And they're, you know, finessing the wording of things to continue to build the image of credibility. And, you know, you might see success for 1, 3, 5, maybe even 10 years, but it always catches up to you, right? And it sucks. I'm doing really hard, slow work right now, and I'm just ready for it to be done. But I keep reminding myself that this is the process that it takes to get to what I envision in the 10-year future mark. And, you know, looking back, you've mentioned this earlier in this episode, like looking back at this season in my life, it's going to feel really short and temporary. When you're in it, it feels like the longest thing ever. And there's challenges, there's struggles, but it's all teaching you and developing you into that next level leader, that person, that servant to the people that you're leading, that influencer that can be more authentic. And through that, hopefully you're rediscovering deeper parts of yourself and stepping into the next version of who you need to become in order to actually serve, lead, and influence those that you're looking to be that light for.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. You have so much going on in your life. You've got your podcast, you have your event space, you're an international speaker, you're going to be a new mama here soon. You're in a loving relationship. You've just got so many things in life that you're you're just so inspiring. You're so powerful. And it seems like you're so successful in everything that you do, but how do you stay balanced? What does Jessie do to find balance in such a demanding life?
Honestly, you have to learn what works for you. I got into human design about a year ago, and that really helped me understand, you know, kind of like my type or my style, my profile. And basically, for people that don't know, is we all have different energy types. And, you know, for me, it's what energizes me is doing the things that I love.
What human design are you?
I am a generator.
Okay.
So I have energy and I do my best work when it's something that I love. And I saw a quote even yesterday that said, like, for generators, you know, it's better to do nothing than to not do only the things that you love. And I know that people are probably sitting there like, oh yeah, duh. Like, of course I want to do only what I love. But no, like there are different types. And so there are different people that are energized differently. And some people, they have to do it only when they have energy, or, they have to, we have to also listen to the signs of like, is this for me? Is this not for me? Right. So for me I'm very fortunate in a way. And also I've worked for this to have the luxury to be able to pick and choose what I do and what I don't do, right? One decision I'm going to share with you right now, since you asked and we're talking about it, is I haven't even announced it yet, but they'll know by the time this comes out, is that I'm going to stop doing my podcast. And even just saying that out loud, it's crazy. Like, you don't understand how I feel inside when I say that, because it's like a baby that I'm kind of like, okay, this was a great phase and I loved it, but it no longer energizes me right now, because I have a baby in the way, like a real baby, human baby in the way. And, I'm doing a lot of speaking, like live speaking, which is even better to me. Like it fills me up more than just over the mic. And so for me, it's just the right thing. And it was the right thing at the time when I did it. And I'm super passionate. And the only thing that just held me back a little bit was the people, right? The connections that I made. It wasn't that I wasn't ready before a few months ago, but I just didn't want to let go of that tribe, because it is a little bit different than social media, right? And like my life, like in-person tribe. But I just feel it's the right thing. And it's having the courage to say no to the things, not just the things that are obviously wrong, because sometimes we get those, but the things that are also right, or that seem okay, but are no longer okay. That, it's not ideal. It's not a heck yes, that it's just like, yeah, I'm doing this, but it's okay.
Maybe you've grown out of that phase in your life. Like it was working, but it no longer is. And that's where you got to keep checking in.
Yeah. And so what I've done throughout the last couple of years, and again, it's a luxury. When I was starting out as an entrepreneur, I had to do a lot of things that I didn't feel like doing too, right? But I've been able to, create systems or have help or whatnot. And now I get to choose. And I've been curating my life. And I like to say that because also as part of my human design, I'm a curator when it comes to taste. And, it's so true about me. And so I've been able to really curate my life, to design it with intention and like exactly what I want. Like, what do I exactly want out of my life? How do I want my year to look like? This year I set the intention to speak. When I do a vision board workshop every year in the beginning of the year, which you spoke at. Yeah. And, I never do my vision board that day because I'm busy. But then like I always end up doing it like weeks later because I need to recover and whatnot. And so I ended up doing my vision board a couple of weeks later. And I remember like I cut out a picture of a baby, and I wasn't quite ready to like necessarily be a mom right away. But I'm always pushing it, right? Like every year I'm like, next year. And I want to be a mother. I didn't feel ready for like each year, right? And I remember that this year I was like, okay, I could get pregnant like December. Like I was thinking like I'll do it this year, but like December, like the end of the year. But anyway, I cut out a picture of a baby. And I remember like out of all the pictures I cut out, I was still kind of like, I was holding it like, okay, like, yeah, this is a big deal, because I know things manifest. And long story short, that day I couldn't finish my board because I had a bunch of cutouts I didn't glue. Some of them I did, some of them I didn't. I had to go. And then, time went by and I just didn't finish it. It was crazy. I just didn't. And so fast forward to like March, I find out that I'm pregnant. And I'm like, wait, what? Because we were not looking for it. We were protecting ourselves. And it just happened. And I know it's a miracle. And I believe in perfect timing. I believe in divine timing. So I'm like, okay, if it happened, it's meant to happen. It's better that it happened this way, because I'm not the person that's like, let's go make a baby. Always busy, right? Like, so anyway, so I basically, I thought about my vision board the other day, and I was like, did I glue the baby photo or not? Because I thought it was one of the cutouts that I didn't get to glue.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. So then like I a couple of days later after I saw that, it's like funny how the universe and everything just falls into place. And a couple of days after that, my fiance, he was like, because by the way, we're not even like officially married yet because our wedding was gonna be 2020.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then we postponed it, and then we've been saying, oh yeah, like we'll do it when, you know, we'll do it when this time is right, or when we're not launching this or whatever. So it's really interesting. But we're getting there. We have a date now, so that's good. But he's like, I found your board. Like I put it in the storage room at the space, and I was like, okay, cool. And I went there yesterday, and like I opened the door, and I saw it was right there. And sure enough, the baby was on the board. And I did not remember gluing the picture. I remember looking at it skeptically, but I don't remember gluing it. But I'm like, of course, the picture is there. Like this is what I'm pregnant.
Master manifester.
It's powerful, you know, it's powerful. And this is to circle back to your question. This is what happens when you get to know yourself, right? You get to know yourself, and then you have to curate your life in a way that really matches that. You have to make it be like exactly what you want, and you have to say no to the things that don't belong. It's like if you have a closet full of old clothes, like even if you try to buy new clothes, like you could not fit them in there, right? Like you have to get rid of some things to make room for the new things. And so for me, that's what I do. I'm very, again, it's a luxury. If people are listening and saying, I can't just do that, I can't just quit this job right now, or I can't just, you know, turn my life around like that. You can, but don't feel the pressure that like, oh, if you don't do it by tomorrow, you're doing something wrong. It's not. You can curate it slowly. You can say, you can make a list and say, okay, well, maybe I can quit my job in 6 months, and then in, you know, 3 months after that, I'll start a podcast or whatever the things that you want to do, right? But it's okay. It's a process. Again, I always talk about process. It's a journey. And for me, that's what I've been doing. And again, when I look back, it didn't take that long, right? It seems like a long time in the process, but now I'm like, it didn't take that long. I mean, I came to San Diego 5 years ago. I've only been in San Diego 5 years ago, you know, and our company has been featured on a bunch of San Diego news outlets. And, you know, we've been featured on Forbes. And the reason I'm sharing this is to say, had you told Jessie 5 years ago when I just arrived to San Diego with my little dog on the U-Haul truck that I was going to be doing all these things in 5 years, I don't know, I probably would have laughed. I would have been hesitant. I would have rolled my eyes. I don't know, right? But at the time, I remember thinking everything was going slow, and I wasn't meeting people fast enough, and I wasn't connected fast enough. And here we are now, and I can't even believe it's been 5 years. And I have no idea what's in store for even a year from now, because as you start being picky with your life, and as you start like manifesting things and understanding that you don't always have to work hard, you know, quotation marks, to get things, but you can attract things, and you can, you know, create that life by design. As you start understanding that, what happens is things get expedited, right? Maybe like whatever I have now, it took me 5 years, but now I can manifest things. I mean, think about the baby thing, right? Like I put that there end of January, and here we are, like, you know, not even in the summer, and like here I'm pregnant, right? I'm gonna be a mom. I'm gonna give birth in November, you know, like before the year end. And so you know, you start manifesting things a lot quicker, and so you have to embrace who you are. You have to embrace, if you want to look into human design, if you want to look into just meditating more, anything that's going to help you get to know yourself better, so that you can you know, expedite that process. But Absolutely. Also don't get impatient. You know, don't be like, why is this not happening? Because part of manifestation is not just making an affirmation or just believing something. Is part of manifestation is that your trust is so big in whatever it is that you're trusting for, that you even have to trust the timing.
Yep.
And even if that timing is 10 years from now, if you're really trusting, you're going to trust that for whatever reason, that's a perfect timing, and you're going to be happy with that. You're going to be content. You're going to rejoice in that. And that's a very powerful process. And what ends up happening is usually the opposite, where you start manifesting things faster.
Absolutely. What are some game-changing books that you've read that have just changed your life and how you approach it?
Yeah, so I have read so many books, and I read about 4 books a month at least, but I'm going to share the most recent one that I'm reading right now. It's called How to Do the Work, and I'm reading the name of the author. I hope I don't butcher it, but it's Dr. Nicole LePera. And I really love it because she talks, you know, about psychology and kind of growth and personal growth, but she kind of redefines a lot of those terms, right? A lot of those terms, psychological terms and whatnot that we've been using. And like I said before, I love doing that with marketing and all that. So it's really cool to start to question our vocabulary. It's really cool to start to understand things differently. And for the women listening to the podcast, I want to say, embrace your feminine power. Start, you know, shifting away from all the indoctrination that we get. You can be a leader and be feminine.
Yes.
You can be a leader and be nurturing. You can, you know, be powerful in a soft, sweet, beautiful way, inspiring way. You know, we don't have to do things that you don't have to curl your arms and look manly to like be influential. You know what I mean? Like, you can be your feminine self and be so powerful. I mean, we have the power to create life within us. Like, that's a unique power that we have. So understanding that, like, we're so powerful. And I always tell people, when people tell you you're a pussy, tell them thank you. Like, yes, yeah, that's a compliment. Like, we birthed life out of that, right? So it's like, just embrace that. And I love this book and any other book that kind of shifts the paradigm and kind of questions everything as we know it and kind of redefines things.
I love it, Jessie. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and just being the amazing light that you are in our community and helping to inspire other women and other people to just step into that next level version of themselves and becoming true leaders within their life. But do you have any other things that you'd like to share with our audience, especially where we can find you on social media?
Yeah, so like I said, we just launched an app. So if you want to join the app, it's free. It's FEMX Community on the Apple or Google Store. And then if for the people that are local, they can follow at FEMX Quarters on Instagram for the space. And they can, if they want to follow me, it's at Jessie Medina Official or just jessiemedina.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jessie. Again, I'm so grateful to have you here. And until next time.
Thank you for having me. Besos.